We're live, Ed. Welcome. Here we are. SoCal Rover Club, learning about air suspension today with Ed Testa.
Okay, with our host. Thank you. I am Ed Testa. Welcome to the Rover Station. If you don't know, I've been doing Rovers for, well, since 2001, so 22 years. And my background is all learned hands-on. I am not a factory trained technician, I will say that, but I deal with this every day. So, with that being said, I have a little cheat sheet on my phone here of all the things we need to talk about. So, to start with, my background, I'm an old ASC Master Tech from way back in the day. Just so you know where I come from, I make things, I build things, I fix things, and I like to figure things out. So, I love off-roading. I've been part of my life, my whole life, and ever since I got a license, everything has been off-road. And I got into Land Rovers many years ago at the dealership. My background is coming from big rock crawler, so you know that's my background, and you know who I am. Most of you know me. You know what I do. Let's see. Today we're going to cover all the component locations. I'm going to tell you, describe the system, go over where the failure points are and what happens to it, and we're going to cover trail repairs and just get a good understanding. The more that you guys know about it, the better you can deal with it when it does happen. And then in the end, I have a cheat for the system. If you're ever unable to get it out, you can, it's like $40 in pieces. I'll get you guys the Amazon links. And you can basically cheat the system, get it up using your onboard air compressor for your tires, right? So we're gonna go through all that. We're gonna start front of the car. We'll work through the more important stuff, the back of the car, and we'll go over basically everything that we can. To start with, this is what we have problems with. This is the thing that lets us down. This is the strut. They're on the LR3s, on the sports, and they're basically did a great thing from the full-size Range Rover that started this. They put the airbag inside of this tin can that you see here. That caused them to last twice as long. Because it used to be religious. Every 3-4 years, you replace the struts. Now that they've done this, they can last, I mean, I've seen them 10, 15 years old and still working. But usually in about 6, 7, 8 years, they're worn out. And beyond that, at that kind of age, the strut inside is worn out. So. You said you just changed yours?
Yep.
Yep. I'm going to encourage you guys, ask questions. Stop me, ask questions. That's how everybody else is going to find out the questions that they have that I miss. So if you guys have anything, just stop me and ask questions. So yeah, there's a strut. This is bag inside of here. It's rubber. It is filled with air and by the compressor. On this car, it does not have an SYA kit, but an SYA kit could be installed here. The SYA kit does not lift the car. That is all done by the pneumatics in the vehicle. Everything on this car, as far as the pneumatics go, it's 6mm pneumatic fittings. You can buy them on Amazon. They make them for all the robot stuff and you know, things like that, air fittings. They also make them for all of your RO, you know, reverse osmosis water systems. So the stuff is readily available. It's out there, right? So you can get fittings, any kind of fitting you would want, they make it for this.
So it's 6mm hose, right?
It's 6mm OD hose, and so everything you get will be 6 millimeter compression fittings.
I think ARB is the same, right?
ARB or airlines and all that are the same. So it's readily available if you want to guys look at that. Those are what the fitting size is. Once again, cheap stuff on Amazon. That's like 20 or something, 11, 30.
Do you have the copper one?
I do. You know what? It's up there.
It's okay.
I have some more of those somewhere.
I just ordered mine
Did you?
since you recommended it.
Yeah. So another thing that fails, and I've seen this on the trail, anytime you're doing suspension work on these, control arms, things like that, change these sway bar links. I've seen them break. You want to get good quality ones because they break right here. Typically, if you have an SYA kit, this pivot is way overextended at full lift, and so it'll break this head off. At that point, we've had these go through the bag and through the metal on the trail. It actually went through, blew the whole thing out, completely unrepairable on the trail.
Is that why they have limiter straps?
The limit straps, no. The limit straps on the SYA kit, they limit the amount that the suspension can droop. If you look at the suspension, all these things are cambered in a little bit, but the axle comes out, and then the bottom part is already angled downwards on the axle. It's pivoted just a little bit more, and so there's a lot of strain when you have this car at full length suspension, 2.5 inches. They need to limit it at that 2.5 inches. If it goes beyond that, you will break the axles. This axle specifically is the one that almost always breaks. Every once in a while you'll break it out the other side, but it's very seldom. It's almost always this axle because it's the shortest one in the car.
So the sway bar inlays bring extras.
Yeah,
They're easy to change out.
they're easy to change out if they do break. If worst case scenario, just take the freaking sway bar link off and keep driving, right?
What about the Johnson rods? Will they do the same thing as SYA kit with the over extensions?
So the SYA kit, they sell it with a lift rod of their own. Johnson rods, local guy, by the way, he's right here. The Johnson rods I found are made better than all the other ones out there. They're round, and so in that the bushings, when sometimes on the cheaper lift rods, the bushings, the moving up and down will saw the bushing apart. So now you have play in your height sensors. So the Johnson rods are full metal round with the rubber bushing in it. I've never seen them wear out. Can they? Yeah, but I've never seen one. So Johnson rods do not. The SYA kit doesn't lift the car. All the SYA kit does is lift the bump stop in the car. So when you have oversized tires, the suspension, when it drops, only can go down so far. It's got 2 inches more of distance between the bump stop when it's all the way lowered down, right? That's all the SYA kit does. The Johnson rod tricks the computer into thinking that it's 2.5 inches taller. You can get them lowered. He sells lowered ones, I think up to 1.5 inches lowering. He sells, I think, 1.5, 2.5 inch lift rods. So you can get them in any length. We all go with the 2.5 inch lift.
What does the SYA kit stand for, Ed?
I was told by Eric it stands for Save Your Ass. If you do not have an SYA kit and your car drops down to the bump stops, you lose air, you lose pressure, your compressor doesn't fill up. If you have oversized tires on there, your wheel will be stuffed up into the fender well and you will not be able to, one, drive without just grinding it, and two, you can't turn the wheel, so you're stuck, right? You have to get the car up somehow.
31.5 inch, right, is your maximum without having to get SYA?
Probably 31s might even be pushing it. I think the factor is 29, isn't it? So.
Yeah, 30.
You're 30.8.
30.6,
correct? I'm 30 and a half, I think.
Yeah.
And
I know 32s, you're stuck.
I was on the bump stops. Ed actually helped me out at after Rover Rendezvous. We
Yeah.
one extra day of off-roading, and I came skidding out of there because exactly that happened.
Yeah.
So
Well, you guys are talking about that size prior with factory Johnson rods. No,
I have
Right.
I have lift rods,
Okay.
but when
We lose all the air.
No. What I'm saying is that you asked the question if 31 is max, but is that with factory Johnson rods or with?
No, in general, we're not talking about the Johnson
Right.
rods, we're talking about the ability to drive the car.
With the okay.
He was
And
able
that's
to drive
dependent
air.
on- Yeah,
Air.
yeah.
He was breaking everything out in front of him, and right?
in fact, I got a chunk out of my rear diff.
I don't remember what size it was, but one of the old club members when the LR3 first came out had some, I want to say it was at least 33s or 34, 35, like he had some big tires on his LR3 when they first came out, right? Blew out something in the suspension. He came into the dealership, and I swear to God, every person was like, "Oh my God," because he had the mud trains on there, and like the whole, like this much of the tire, that much of it was just gone from it dragging the fender well. It was crazy. I've never seen that since because most people don't run that big of a tire. But so that's that. On the top of the strut, there is there's a fitting. It's a brass compression fitting that screws into the strut with a collet, and that goes around the airline. You put the collet on there, you put the screw-on part, you put the collet on there, and then it basically, when it comes in, it compresses it against against the line, and it basically seals it. And that's how it's got 2 O-rings in there. That's how that part is sealed and held together. That's the connection to the strut, okay? It is not on a quick connect. A lot of stuff on these cars is on a quick connect. So, Jason, by the way, where are you? Thanks for letting us use your car. So that's this part here in a nutshell, right? Let's walk to the back of the car. Very, very, very seldom do the rear struts at all fail. The rear strut, they did one extra little thing which makes a world of difference. This is not the airbag. This is a rubber boot covering the rear strut. So the airbag is still in here, but this rubber boot keeps any kind of material, any kind of dirt, any kind of atmospheric wear. You don't get cracked rubber, whereas the fronts are open on the bottom of the tin can. So you do get wear in there, and they tend to leak actually both there and at the top area. This one, I think I've replaced 2 or 3 in all the years. Probably 5, because we just did one set because they were just worn out. Right? The strut was the dampening and the shock part was worn out. So not a very common wearing thing to blow out on the trail. Can it? Probably.
For me.
Yeah, it's just not really common. So
Yeah.
these axles are much longer. You get a ton of droop out of the rear end of these things. Limit straps, you could probably leave them off, but it definitely helps putting a limit strap with the SYA kit. They send them with it. Mind you, sports, certain years, I think all years of the sport, the front control arm is different than the LR3. So if you get an SYA kit, you can't put the front limiting strap for the LR3 on the sport because of the control arm. There is a way around that that I came up with. You can limit strap it, but you have to get a little creative with how to mount it on there, and it's not the same limit strap. You got to go to like a 22-inch limit strap.
And that bolt that you're holding right now, we've actually shared that on the road.
These failed.
Yes.
Years ago, and I don't know if we can still get them, there was a run in the UK, and we did a group buy. And
I did that one.
You got on it, yeah.
No, I did the buy.
Oh, you didn't?
Yes. I did that. I did that whole thing. It was from Italy, actually.
Yeah.
I think he still makes it. But
Does he?
There's a bracket that goes.
Yeah, so this bolt is not captured. when you accelerate, this bolt takes all of the acceleration and shoves it into there. So if you're climbing a hill, it's rough, you're just shearing on this bolt. And if you look at how it's mounted, I don't know if you can see up close, it's at the thread. So it's a weaker part of the bolt where it's actually captured. So if we pull it out, this one's completely threaded, so there's no thick part to hold it. So what happens is it'll shear off right here, and then your wheel's loose. Can you still drive it like that? Yeah, it'll make it out, but you're having fun and driving sideways. So they do make in the UK, I guess they still make it. They make a bracket that mounts to the caliper hanger and holds the back side of this bolt so that it basically is captured on both ends and won't break.
Yeah. The company's in Italy, by the way.
Yeah.
Not UK, Italy.
Yeah, I don't remember the place. It was years, 5, 6, 7 years ago that we did that.
And you have it?
No, I did the group buy. I have to go find who that is, but I think it still makes it. It's for 4x4 it or something, IT or
Yeah, that the orange one right there broke one off.
As well.
Yeah, not this time, but a year ago he broke it off and came in with it on the trailer, and I had to drill a bolt out and tap it, retap it, and get a new bolt in there. Let's see. Air suspension compressor sits right here. There are two different types of compressors. Let's talk about them for a minute. They are both the same mounted, for the most part, they both fit the same system and work both on all of the cars, but there's different software for each one. The original one is a Hitachi. The later ones use an AMK. An AMK was a little better design, a little more robust of a system. The Hitachis, they work. Now there's a lot of generic copies out there, even bad stuff.
What was Tim's?
Huh?
What was Tim's? Do you know what Tim's was?
It must have been.
I don't know. His was a super cheap Chinese one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. He just put it on there to get the car running, and then never changed it out. Right. So the Hitachis work. Right. If you get a good quality, one, but you got to be careful. There's stuff that says it's like dormant or something like that, and it's Reebok's Chinese stuff. A lot of the cheap ones I found, and I had to stop buying. They were so cheap it was stupid not to buy them. But they make them, and they have the wrong connectors. They actually put the wrong connector on the wrong side, and they're coming out, cheap Chinese and stuff. They're coming out, and so we had to cut the wiring and rewire it, put the connector off the old one. But if you get a good quality one, Hitachis are fine. Cars last 6, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. I still occasionally see one come in, and how old are they now on an LR3? They still come in with Hitachis in there, and they're still working fine. But they do not last as well as the AMK. The AMK is a much more robust compressor, a little better design.
You just got to switch out the program.
You have to get it programmed. It needs, I think the Gap tool will do the programming on there.
Yes.
And there's a few computers. You have to have basically a dealer level software because you have to flash the software into the car configuration file, the CCF file in the vehicle, right? So you have to go in there and program the AMK software into the car to convert Hitachi to AMK.
I'm going to into Gap, have them reconfigure, and then they'll blast it back to you, and then you go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's simple though. Gap has been really
Gap's
good to
awesome.
deal with.
They're good people.
They are awesome. It's an awesome company. Although you can't just call them on the phone.
No.
But you email, they respond, they get stuff done, and you can, the Gap tools.
6 months later.
Awesome for LR3 sports, Land Rovers. The Gap tools are great, especially with their suspension.
If you search Google Gap, I've called them many times.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Canadian Google.
I remember doing something and I was like, I can't get a hold of these guys. I emailed them and they got right back to me and got me what I needed. So, so Gap Tool is, we'll talk about that for a quick second. With the air suspension, You can deflate the air suspension, reinflate the air suspension. You can see faults in every computer, clear faults in every computer. You can do programming through them, and you can change the height settings. When I lowered my wife's Sport, I got 1.5-inch Johnson rods. They were just a little too low. So it was causing it to bounce down the road on the freeway. So I raised it, you know, I think it was 10 or 20 millimeters. Just 15 millimeters, I think, is what I found the sweet spot. I raised it up just a few bits with my gap tool so that it didn't do that, you know. So you can adjust your height, fine tune the height even and to what you want without even having the height sensors on there. Height sensor on the back sits right here. This is the rod. This is all stock. This is the lift rod that we call, you know, they make the Johnson rods to replace this. The Johnson rod actually is shorter, I believe, to lift the car. So the height sensor is right here. It's just a simple potentiometer. It tells the computer what height value this thing is sitting at. They have one on all four corners of the car, and that's basically all it does. It just goes up and down with the control arm and tells the car where it's sitting. So the car always has a reference point of keeping the car level. So one of the problems we run into with the height sensors, here we are on the trail. We've lost suspension. Something went wrong. We're not going to even go into what, but something went wrong. Your car is down, right? How do you get it up? You have a gap tool. You have a computer. Ain't gonna bring it back up. There's nothing you can do to get the air suspension to come back alive. Clearing faults doesn't bring it up. What's going on? It can't see the height sensor when it's stuffed all the way up.
Out of range.
It's out of range, right? So this is your first part of trail repair on an air suspension system. Get out 2 jacks, jack the back bumper and the front bumper up, lift the car 1-2 inches, and then try clearing faults. If the suspension, if it will clear, it'll come back alive, it will lift the car back up. So you need to bring it back into its potentiometer range where it can see the height sensor, and all you have to do is just lift the car a little bit.
What does the gap tool read when that is happening, Ed? Just for us with gap tools.
Out of range.
Out of range.
It says out of range?
Yeah, it can't see the height sensors.
They're just too tweaked up.
Yeah.
It'll tell you which one too.
Yeah, I got one. It's up there.
So,
When you see the word level,
but if it's down, if your suspension's down, it's not going to see the height sensors. You don't even have to think about it. Before you do anything, jack the car up, clear the faults, see if it comes back up. Right? That's like step one. Working with these things with the air suspension, step one is to just jack it up so it can see the height sensors.
And you have to do both sides.
You have to do both sides because it's all four that it can't see.
Okay.
so I guess, is there a gyroscope in there then for the leveling, or?
A gyroscope potentiometer.
Volume control.
So when
level is always digging
Level?
0 out then, right?
I will
It
show you
doesn't
on the
actually-
computer.
You can't level.
I'll show you.
Okay.
It's all values. It's just a value, a number value. And what it's saying is, here's my number value, you know, 5 point something. And this one, when you calibrate the car, right, when it's originally calibrated, it's given a number value to the height sensor, right, to where it sits at level, okay? By the way, all these sit crooked, so if your car sits a 1/2 inch crooked, it's normal. So each sensor has a value given to it by the computer. When you lift it, it's going to the next value target on each sensor, and it thinks that it's level. It might not be level, but that's what you've told it in the beginning, that this number value voltage is level, okay? So it's going to go to that value that's preset into the computer. When you go into the gap tool, it's got millimeters, right? You're adjusting certain sections by millimeters because they've translated it into not numerical value voltages, but into a common number that we can read, right?
When you guys say both sides, jack up both sides, you mean front and back?
Yeah, front and back.
Front and back.
Front and back.
per side.
Yeah, and I just jack them up in the middle. I'll put it right here on the tow hitch piece or right under the diff and just jack it up. It doesn't have to be much. I think an inch or two works. You don't need to lift the car back up. The one thing I do, I jack it up just enough so it sees the sensors. I clear the faults. I let the system build back pressure, and then it lifts itself off the jacks. Right? So you don't even have to, you don't have to do anything but that. Just lift it up a little bit so it sees the sensors, clear the faults, and it'll.
So the front and back are two separate jackings, if you will.
Correct. You have to have all four within visible range to the computer.
Okay, all four at once.
Yeah.
So you got to put a jack up front. You got to jack. You got to put the jack in the back and the jack in the front both at the same time.
Yeah.
Just bring it
And you're
back
not
up.
lifting the car off the ground.
Right.
You're just
The tire
raising
stuff.
it up a little
You're just
bit.
bringing it up all four corners.
But then if it's with the SYA, you gotta go higher then? Add 2 more? No? That was
You just jack it up a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Because
The
the SYA is
SYA
actually bringing it back in range.
Actually, it should be within range for
Yeah.
SYA.
Yeah. It'll
Already
actually
2
bring
inches
it,
down.
because it's not allowing it. SYA with lift rods
Yeah.
puts it back out of range.
With
But
lift rods.
SYA with stock rods, it would be in range. It would never get to that lower point. So that's that in a nutshell on that part.
Question.
Yes.
So do you have to, in that situation, do you have to have all 4 sensors, raise it for all 4 sensors, or just the sensor that's out of range? Because if you're on uneven
Technically,
terrain,
just the sensor that's out of range. The best thing to do just before you jack up anything, get it to fire. But yeah, you could just jack up the one wheel that's out of range. So
If you still have center nav, it'll tell you which one's out of range.
yeah, you
It'll
could
be
look
blinking
on
around.
your
If you still have it.
your
It'll tell you.
navigation
Yeah.
screen, your off-road mode in the navigation screen where it shows all 4 wheels and the heights, the green lines. It'll show you if you can't see. I think it looks like
It's blinking red.
Yeah. So, so yeah, so you can just jack up to answer that. You can just jack up the section that's stuff, and it should see all the rest of the sensors. But if you're on flat ground, typically you've already moved this thing to flat ground, and you want to jack up just front and back. We've had one stuck in a ditch, tore off. Let's go look at this real quick, guys. We are moving.
You're good.
Oversized tires, turning, making a left turn. The back of the tire, especially if it's a mud terrain, will grab this harness. It would yank the wiring out of the height sensor right here.
Good God.
And we had that happen, Matt had that happen down in, no, it was Alpine on Sidewinder. And tore it out, and they didn't have a computer one to get it back, and he was able to figure it out and rewire it before I even got there in the morning. But yeah, so if you put oversized tires on these, pull this off these little grommets. There's 2 of them, and drill a little hole right up in here, and just bring it up here. That's enough to get it up out of the way of the tire.
There's that much slack to get it up that high?
There's enough. Yeah, but there's enough to get it up out of the way.
Yeah, well, just zip tie it.
Yeah, you zip tie it. You just drill a hole and zip tie it up here. These just pull off. And once you pull it off, there's a lot of.
Oh, okay, I see.
You gotta move them.
They make push things with the seat.
Yeah.
No, I was like, that was pretty hot, so.
Yeah, it's tight because it's on clips right there.
Not on the passenger side.
Yeah.
and how often do you replace that zip tie?
You'd be surprised how long those things last. So that is a very common failure point on these with oversized tires, especially if you're running a mud terrain. All terrains, normal tires don't tend to grab it like the mud terrain with the big lugs, but mud terrains absolutely. Go ahead and move that like right away when you put them on there. Okay, so that's that. Let's go back to the back. So your compressor sits right here. There's a vent tube and a breather are back here on the back side. There's a tube that runs up here to a dryer, to an air intake and a muffler. They're brought up pretty high, so you tend not to get water sucked into the system or anything like that. And that they actually run all the way up into the back, up really high up in there. These do tend to melt. These, when the compressors get really hot, it'll melt the tube here. So sometimes, you know, if you're in a pinch, it's melted, just cut it off. You know, if you've melted it, just cut it off and get it out of there, and then you can do a repair later. This is different size. It's not 6 millimeter, but it's also not. You don't need anything special. You can just get some tube and repair this.
What size is it? Is it
I
8?
think it's 8.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
Suspension compressors on rubber bushings. If you hear it vibrating, it's either the box, clamshell box that sits around it, or the bushings are worn. You typically don't hear the compressor other than a faint little hum. So you can see this is a rubber bushing. It's got a spring. Real, you know, there's just something to isolate the noise, but they get hit because there's nothing. This is an aluminum bracket. They get hit off-road and a rock, and you'll hear them rattling and vibrating. It's because either this got bent, damaged, or the compressor bushings have gotten torn, or the box around it is hitting it. The box will add to the noise tremendously. If you take the box off and leave it off, the compressor is pretty loud. The box itself inside has foam inside the plastic to keep the noise down, because it's not quiet operation. It's a compressor, just like your ARB air compressors. You've heard everybody's heard those running, trying to fill tires. This is the exact same compressor system. That's all it is. It's just pumping air, right? There's a thermostatic switch in here to turn it on and off when it gets too hot. It's somewhere around 300 degrees. They get hot, like, you know, really hot. So the compressor output comes out this side, and if you look right here, this is the valve block. This is one of the 3 distribution blocks in the car. This is where the pressure is sent forward and backwards.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Okay, so you have 3 systems in the car. You have the heart, which is this part with the compressor. Then you have a rear system and a front system. This is the piece that diverts the air from the tank, which, just so you know, the tank is right here. This is your reservoir for your air. The air pressure is pumped from this out, both directions, right? So it's sending air to front or rear, depending on where it needs it. And then from there, the valve block on the back, it's inside the fender well. I don't know if we can see it. The front one is on the front right-hand side of the fender well. Up in front. You can't see them, I don't have it apart, but there's one up here and there's one in the back. So what it does is it sends the air forward or backwards, and then the other valve blocks, front or rear, will send it side to side. So Land Rover does articulate the air, imitate articulation. And the way they do that is by basically letting the air suspension do this, right? So it'll let air out of this one, pump air in this one, the same thing. Now, one of the things that we ran into on the last trip was that the compressor was bad. The compressor was really weak, and what happened was the compressor would come on and it would fill the system up. But because it was overheating and dying, it couldn't keep the system up. One of the things that happens is once the air is in the bag, it doesn't pump air back into the system. It vents it. It lets the air out through the valve block. So when your air compressor can't keep up, and if you're off-road on a rough trail, what's happening is it's constantly letting the air out, letting the air out. Well, the compressor's trying to keep up, right? And so all of a sudden, it doesn't have air to pump this one back up, and it's let it all out. And you know, you're doing it all 4 wheels, you're letting all the air out, the car's gonna come down and it's gonna be down, right? There's, you know, with the compressor at that point, your car's down, you gotta jack the car up, you gotta bring it back alive, clear the faults, and bring it back up. If you let the compressor cool down, it's got enough oomph, it will bring the car back up, but it's going to take a lot of time. And the one we had last week, or last trip, we couldn't get the compressor. We could get the compressor to pump up, but we drove it 100 feet is all it took. It was a pretty hard trail. 100 feet is all it took. The compressor was back. All four wheels were all back down. We had to start back over. Right? At that point, we got a little more creative, and we were able to get the car off of the trail. But you've got to work with what you got. So first, you got to figure out what it is that's taking the system down, and then you got to mitigate the problem. So
just to be clear,
yeah,
the system doesn't draw from the tank. Does the compressor distribute right from the compressor, or does it go into the tank and then it's distributed from the tank outward?
It's distributed from the tank outward. You have to have the tank full before the system will put air out. So sometimes when you fire it up, you get it going, and all of a sudden the compressor's on and it's running and running and running and running. It's trying to fill that
when it's
reservoir.
cold.
Yeah. If you've got so it's got to fill the reservoir first before it can fill the air springs. And so you'll see the back come alive first, and it'll lift the back, and then your front's sitting down, and it's taking forever because it's already put all the air in the back. Now it's trying to fill the front, and it's already ran out of air, and the compressor's trying to catch back up and fill that reservoir. So, but yeah, so the front will take a lot longer to fill than the back usually. I think they'll fill the back first. So,
Why is the problem so small and the rear so big in these trucks?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Because that's not solid.
I don't know.
Towing.
It's like so dinky. And
It's like, you have a towing capability too.
So you see this bag, you can reach in and touch the actual rubber of the air spring inside of this can. There's nothing sealing it out here to keep the environmental wear on the off the
You
side.
don't even know it's there.
This is why the front's taken
I mean,
just
honestly,
like the back.
in the minute.
Other than that, they really are very similar design.
My Japanese heart.
Right. Okay. We talked about that. This. Let's talk a quick second about emergency braking.
Sorry.
It was just brought up. So we know we have emergency brake issues on these things with the actuators locking up. And it's happened to me. There's an easy fix to get off of the trail or out from where you're at or back home. So this is the emergency brake cable that runs to the brake drum that sits right here. Yes, it's all off of the car right now. The actuator sits up in the middle, and it's got little nylon gears, and they strip out. So, yes, you can rebuild them. It's more than I would want to do, but you can rebuild them. But when it is locked up, there's no releasing it. It will not release with the little cable inside. They lock here at the drum, and it's engaged. It's fully locked. The quick fix is you have to use bolt cutters, and this is steel wound cable, and I'll show you.
Right here, I got it.
Yep. This is steel wound cable, much like the corrugation over the electrical here. And so it is extremely strong. You cannot cut it with any kind of regular cutters. You can't. You can use a thin wheel cutter, like a grinder, and cut through it, but you don't have that on the trail or in your car. When I had my Sport, I carried a pair of bolt cutters. And it saved me a couple times. This cable sits right here. It's on a hanger. You can see it going forward on both sides, right? It goes into the emergency brake. When the actuator pulls on it, it pulls this in. When it's locked, you cannot move the car because the wheel is locked up. The emergency brake's on. So, pair of bolt cutters, cut it right here. Anywhere back in here, just cut it. The minute that you cut it, it will release the emergency brake. You always want to try the little cable inside, but 90% of the time they don't do anything. They won't release it. It's bound inside.
You can also try the gap unjam, right?
You can.
First.
I've had that not even work.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, if you just carry bolt cutters, snap right here, done, you're back on the trail. You're gonna have to fix it anyways. When you go to fix the, replace the assembly, it comes with the cables, everything, all the way out to the wheel. So all you're doing is basically cutting something that you're gonna replace when you go to replace the aftermarket. So, just, cut it right in here, done, wheels free. And a quick story, my wife's car made it onto the freeway, and it locked up the wheel. She pulled over. I got there, ended up going to the tow truck driver, took me to the Home Depot at the next corner, grabbed a pair of bolt cutters, went back there, cut it. Tow truck driver took off, I drove home. Pretty simple, right? So yeah, all you have to do is cut this cable. It is really solid. It is really, really solid steel. So, let's see, next thing we gotta talk about. I'll look at my cheat sheet, guys.
So we have a question over here, Ed. And the intake for the compressor.
Yeah, come on over here, guys.
So, is that a filter?
That is the dryer, yes.
Oh, it's a dryer.
That's the dryer right
But the air comes in here?
there. The air comes in from up here.
Right.
And through this, yes, into the dryer. And then this is the vent. That's the exhaust.
Oh, gotcha. If you get water, you can't get water in here, right?
You're not going to get water in there. You'll get it sucked in through the top. It's really hard to get water in there, but I have seen water in the struts, in the suspension system. I will warn you, once it's in there, fricking change it to coils, because you're going to have to replace everything. So the water, once it's in there, it goes into the air springs, into the struts, and you cannot get it out of the system because it's in the reservoir, it's in the struts. You have to do deep fording for it to get in there. So you're not going to get in there unless you're actually doing some deep water stuff, some heavy water stuff that's up to, the top up here, because it's back in here. So
How can you tell if you've,
the system will start. The system will blow up the compressor first of all. But when you go to replace it, you'll be finding water in your connectors and stuff like that. You don't really know that's what it is because it doesn't do it immediately, but it will wear the compressor out pretty quickly.
okay, so for those of us who had to replace our air struts, who replaced it didn't tell us the whole system's messed up, then we
Most
should be
people
good.
wouldn't know. I didn't catch it the first time I saw one. We didn't catch it till I think we did a couple compressors or something like that, and then when we pulled, I think it was the rear valve block apart, and we popped the rear valve block out, and there was water in it, and we were like, that was the point that we realized that there was water through the system, and that it needed to be, we needed all new struts and everything. So the fix was we converted that one.
So that's my one question while we're talking about, when do you